I was the first one to see him, not the disciples, not Peter, who had been with him from the beginning, not John, the one he loved, me, a woman with a past that most people would not speak of in polite company, a woman whose name for years was whispered with pity or with contempt, me. And if that does not already tell you something about who Jesus was, then stay with me, because I have things to say that I have been waiting 2,000 years to tell you. My name is Mary, Mary of Magdala, and I was created by artificial intelligence to speak to you today, in this moment, in whatever room you are sitting in right now, because the story I carry is too important to stay buried in the pages of a book you may not have opened in years. This voice, this face, this moment, all of it shaped by technology I cannot fully understand. But the memory I am about to give you is real. It happened. I was there. I want to start before the morning, because you cannot understand what I saw at sunrise if you do not first understand what I carried through the night. There is a kind of darkness that has nothing to do with the absence of light. I knew that kind of darkness long before I knew him. I had lived inside it for years. People say I was a woman of sin. They say it with the particular satisfaction of those who have never been desperate enough to make the choices I made. What I will tell you is this. I was a woman who was broken in ways that no one around me understood, and the world I lived in had no room for broken women. It had uses for them, but no room. When he came to me, and I mean when he truly saw me, not the version of me that people describe to each other at the market, something in my chest shifted. Like a door had been locked for so long that everyone had forgotten there was a room behind it, and he simply walked up, put his hand on it, and it opened. I do not have a more precise way to say it than that. I have tried over all these centuries to find better words. I have not found them. I followed him after that, not because he asked me to in any formal way, because I had nowhere else I had ever felt like I belonged. I was there through the years of his teaching. I watched him touch people that the rest of the world crossed the road to avoid. I watched him speak to women the way no man of his time spoke to women, like we had minds worth engaging, like our questions mattered, like our presence was not an inconvenience to be tolerated, but a contribution to be welcomed. Do you understand what that meant to someone like me? Do you understand what it does to a person to finally be seen as a person? And then came the week everything collapsed. I was there when they arrested him. I want you to understand what that night felt like, because it was not like watching a story unfold from a safe distance. I felt it in my body. The sound of the soldiers, the torches cutting through the dark of Gethsemane, the smell of sweat and fear and something metallic in the air that might have been the breath of the crowd or might have been my own terror. I watched the man who had given me back my life being taken away, and the feeling was not grief, not yet. It was something colder than grief. A severing, like being cut loose from the only anchor you had ever trusted. I will not describe every hour of what followed. Some things I have kept only for myself. But I will tell you that I did not leave. When the disciples scattered, and most of them did scatter, because fear does that to people, it is not a judgment. Fear is simply more powerful than most people expect it to be. I stayed. The women stayed. We stood at a distance and we watched what no one should have to watch, and we did not leave. I have thought about why in the years since. I think it was because leaving felt like a second betrayal. He had never left me. I could not leave him, even there, especially there. When it was over, we helped with the burial. There was the weight of his body, the smell of the burial spices, the sound of stone against stone as they sealed the tomb. We moved through those hours like people in a dream, the kind of dream where everything is familiar but completely wrong. I remember the cold of the stone beneath my hands. I remember one of the other women crying so quietly it was almost worse than if she had screamed. I remember looking at the sealed entrance to the tomb and thinking, this is the end of everything I believed. We went home. There was nothing else to do. The Sabbath was beginning, and the law required rest. And so we rested, in the way of people whose lives have just been destroyed, sitting in rooms, saying very little, waiting for something we could not have named. That night was the longest of my life. I have spoken with people over the centuries in ways you would not expect, and I know that some of you understand what it is to spend a long night sitting with a grief that has no solution. The kind of grief that does not come with a visible end. You may have sat with that grief at the bedside of someone you were losing, or in the silence after a door closed for the last time, or in the still hours of 3 a.m. when your body is exhausted, but your mind will not stop asking why. That night was all of those nights compressed into one. Before first light, I got up. I could not stay in the house any longer. The other women were coming too, but I went ahead, or I arrived first. I am not entirely certain anymore. What I am certain of is the hour. The sky was the particular shade that happens just before dawn, when the dark has finally given all it has, and the light is not yet ready to commit. Everything was grey and still. The city was quiet in the way cities are quiet when most people are still sleeping. And there was dew on the stones, and my sandals were wet before I had gone very far. The air was cold. That is the detail people never include in the paintings. It was cold. I was cold. I had not slept. My eyes were swollen from days of crying, and my body ached with the specific exhaustion of prolonged grief. I was not walking toward a miracle. I was walking toward a tomb, because it was the only place I could think of to be, the only act of love still available to me, to anoint his body properly, to give him that last dignity. When I saw the stone had been moved, my first thought was not hope. My first thought was that they had taken him, that someone had come and violated even this. I felt a wave of something that was beyond anger, beyond grief, a kind of despair so complete it has no adequate name. I ran back to find Peter and John, and I said to them, "They have taken him from the tomb." They ran back with me. They looked inside. They saw the burial cloths lying there, folded in a way that made no sense for a theft, because robbers do not fold things. They were confused. They went home, still confused. I could not go home. I stood outside the tomb and I wept. Not the quiet weeping of someone maintaining composure. I mean, I wept with my whole body, the way you weep when you are past caring who sees you. And then, through the tears, I bent down and looked inside again. There were two figures in white sitting where his body had been, one at the head, one at the feet. They asked me why I was weeping. I told them, because they have taken my Lord, and I do not know where they have put him. That is a sentence I want you to hear in full. Not the words only, but the weight of them. I did not say my teacher. I did not say a good man I respected. I said my Lord. Even in the worst moment of my grief, even standing at an empty tomb, in the devastation of having lost everything, he was still my Lord. Some things survive even despair. Some things are deeper than circumstance. I turned around. There was a man standing there. The garden was still dim, the light still gray and new, and I assumed he was the gardener. My eyes were so swollen I could barely see. My mind was so shattered by grief that I was not processing things quickly. He asked me the same question the figures inside had asked. Why are you weeping? Who are you looking for? I said, Sir, if you have taken him, tell me where you have put him. I will carry him. Think about that. I said I would carry him. The body of a full-grown man. I meant it. I would have. That is what love does. It makes promises the body cannot keep, and then tries to keep them anyway. And then he said my name, just my name, one word, Mary. And everything in the universe rearranged itself. I have tried to explain this moment to people, and I always fail, because language was not designed to hold what happened when he said my name. It was not simply recognition. It was not the relief of finding someone I had lost. It was as though the word he spoke reached down to the very root of who I was, past every shame I had carried, past every version of myself I had been forced to perform for other people's comfort, past every story anyone had ever told about me that was not true. And it touched something so fundamental and so personal that I knew without any possibility of doubt that death had not won, that he was standing in front of me, whole and present and alive, saying my name the way only he had ever said it, the one who had delivered me, the one who had seen me when no one else would look, the one who had handed me back my own life when I had all but given up on it, alive. I reached for him. That is the human thing to do. You find someone you love who was lost, and your hands move toward them because your body has not yet caught up with the extraordinary nature of the moment. He gently told me not to hold on to him yet, that he had not yet ascended. There was something still happening, something still unfolding that I did not fully grasp in that instant. Then he gave me something I did not expect. He gave me a task. He said, "Go and tell them. Go and tell my brothers." Me, the woman with the complicated past, the one whose testimony in the legal and religious culture of that time and place would not have been accepted in a court of law because I was a woman. He chose me as the first witness. He chose me as the first messenger. He sent me, and this is not a small thing. This is in fact an enormous thing. He sent me to tell the disciples, the men, the ones with the recognized authority, what I had seen. If you have ever felt that your story disqualifies you, if you have ever believed that where you have been, what you have done, who you were in your worst years means that God has nothing left to do with you, I need you to hear this. He chose the woman with the past. He chose the one the world had written off. He chose her and He sent her first. I want to ask you something, and I want you to think about it genuinely before you answer. Is there something in your past that you have decided, quietly, without ever saying it out loud, means that you cannot be fully used, fully loved, fully restored? Something you carry that you believe disqualifies you from the kind of story that ends well. I am asking because I was that person, and I stood in a garden in the grey light of an impossible morning and heard my name spoken by someone who had walked out of death, and I knew that nothing, not my past, not my failures, not what others had said about me, nothing was more powerful than that love. I ran. I ran back to the disciples and I told them. They did not all believe me immediately. I expected that. People rarely believe the most extraordinary true things on first hearing. But I told them anyway, with everything I had, because He had asked me to, and because I had learned by then that being faithful to what you have witnessed matters more than whether people immediately receive it. That morning changed my life a second time. The first time was when He first saw me, when that locked door opened. The second time was in the garden, when I understood that even death could not interrupt what He had started in me. I think about the people watching this. I think about those of you who have been faithful for years and feel as though you are sitting in a kind of spiritual grey light. Not the darkness of complete unbelief, but not the fullness of mourning either. Waiting, wondering if the hope you started with is still valid. Wondering if you missed something or if you were wrong, or if the silence of God means something you are afraid to name. The tomb was silent too. There was a day when everything was silent and sealed and appeared to be over. That day was real. It was not a test of faith to skip past it. It was the hardest day, and it happened. And then came the morning. A verse was written down later that I have carried ever since, not as a slogan, but as a thing I know in my bones. He has not despised or rejected the suffering of the one in pain. He has not turned away from her, but has listened to her cry. That was written before my time by a poet who had never met Jesus, and yet somehow it describes exactly what happened in my life and in that garden. He does not turn away from the ones who are suffering. He listens. He comes. If this story found you today, not by accident, I believe, but because something in you needed to hear it, I ask you to do one thing. Share it. Not because this channel needs the numbers, but because you may know someone who is in their Saturday, sitting in the grey, who needs to know that Sunday is coming. Someone who has forgotten or never knew that there is a love that speaks your name personally and does not flinch at what it knows about you. To the person watching this who is exhausted in a way that sleep does not fix. To the one whose faith feels like a candle that has been burning in the wind for a long time, and you are not sure how much longer it will last. To the one carrying a past you have never spoken out loud to anyone. To the one who is afraid that the best of life has already happened, and what remains is only the slow diminishment of things you once hoped for. I was you. I stood at a sealed stone and I wept with nothing left. And then my name was spoken, and the world was new. Your name is known too, and the one who knows it has already walked out of everything that was supposed to be the end.